Let's go for it! I like the dark stuff. Give me the dark stuff. I like the dark stuff. Give me the dark stuff.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Dark Stuff. Thanks a lot for checking out my new video. I'm your buddy Dave. I host the channel. On this new video, I am rejoined by my friends Joi and Keith, and we have another discussion. In this case, I needed to break it up into two parts. You'll probably understand why once you start watching the video, but we decided to take on the topic of best female vocalists, singers, whatever, with no criteria, not from a certain era, not fronting a band, not as a solo artist, as a writer, whatever. We could just pick whatever we wanted. We each chose 5, and it started getting pretty in-depth. So basically, rather than have you guys watch a really, really long video, I edited it into 2 parts. So this here is part 1, and I'll have part 2 coming up in a week or so. All right, well, here we're all back. The band is back together again for another reunion tour. You know,
Right.
we're gonna keep milking it. So we're doing our favorite female singers. Well, I'll start. It's my show.
Yeah.
So let me see. I'll pick my first one here. Hold on. I'll go with these are not in order. My 5 are not in any order for those people watching, but we're going to start off with Susanna Hoffs,
Yeah.
better known as the singer of the Bangles. Here is their 5-star debut album, all over the place. I love this record. It is so good.
Me too.
Bangles were never as good as that particular album. They were good after that, but they were never as good as that particular record. For me, with the Bangles, it really started with MTV, and I saw their video for Hero Takes a Fall, and I fell in love with Susanna Hoffs. I mean, I thought she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. I've kind of had a crush on her ever since then, since 1984. You know,
She's gorgeous.
She's awesome.
She's
right?
gorgeous.
And I, years and years ago, back before I was doing YouTube and stuff, I used to do a blog, and I did it for years. And I had this blog posting that I titled "How a Teenage Crush on Susanna Hoffs Changed My Musical Taste." Okay.
Awesome.
And I
good.
posted it on the blog, and I Twitter was still pretty new at the time, but I added Susanna Hoffs on it, and she liked it, which means I don't know whether she read the piece or just liked the title or whatever, but it's true, because when in 84, I was into heavy metal for the most part, and a jangly 60s style girl group was not exactly the kind of thing that I was into at 13 back in 84. But
Yeah.
something about that song Hero Takes a Fall, which is still my favorite song by the Bangles and my favorite thing that she's ever done, because I just think that song is so perfect. And then just 2 years ago, I found out that the song is about Steve Wynn from the Dream Syndicate. He's the hero that needed to take a fall. Like, I had no idea. I'd known that song for decades. I didn't know who it was about. And the Dream Syndicate did a version of it, and Steve Wynn admitted he knew it was about him. So there's just something about a combination of Susanna Hoffs' voice. She has that kind of angelic, really girly voice, but she also is a great songwriter, and she's real, you can tell her influences are, the Beatles and a lot of the 60s kind of psychedelic stuff, or just not even 60s psychedelic, but just more like 60s pop.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've just always liked her. Yeah, there was that crush element, but bottom line is that can only go so far, right? I mean, if you're not going to like somebody for 36 years, their music, based on, just having like a teenage crush or whatever. So
That's why my crush on Samantha Fox didn't last. The music just wasn't there.
yeah,
I don't even know who that is.
Oh, look it up. You'll laugh your ass off.
yeah.
Samantha Fox.
Samantha
Samantha
Fox. Yeah, she was like
she had an amazing song called "Naughty Girls Need Love Too."
yeah. Didn't she have wasn't "Touch Me" one of her songs too?
I
She had
think so.
something
I
like
think
"Touch Me"?
so. I just
Okay.
remember the Naughty Girls.
Naughty girls need love too.
as well. That's
Look,
right.
when you're like 14, she was like she was super hot.
Oh
She
yeah.
had been like doing like topless pictures and shit for years before she became a singer. So kind of everybody already sort of knew what was going on with her. But yeah, she had a 1 year, 2 year flirtation with pop stardom.
But she wasn't like a real singer. Susanna Hoffs is a very talented.
Right.
Right.
No
She wasn't
way.
in a group. Like she wasn't in a group and went solo. The Samantha.
No, I don't know.
No. I don't think no group would have her probably. But anyways.
No.
Okay, so back to Susanna Hoffs. So I've liked her ever since then. So the Bangles broke up and Susanna Hoffs went solo. And, you know, I'll admit her solo stuff really was a little too mainstream and poppy for me. It was kind of like, you know, she had that song Eternal Flame with the Bangles, which is their biggest song ever. But it's a wedding song to me. You know, it's not something that I really want to put on and listen to all that much. It's a beautiful song. She sings really well, but it's just not, you know. So until she started doing these records with Matthew Sweet, okay, it's called Under the Covers Volume 1, and they've done Volume 1, 2, and 3. And Volume 1 is 60 songs, Volume 2 is 70 songs, Volume 3 is 80 songs. And they're just fantastic. Because, you know, Matthew Sweet's a real genius. And the two of them duet on certain things. And then sometimes Susanna does it all by herself. And then sometimes Matthew Sweet does it all by herself. But they pick great songs. You know, it's a really great collection. So I kind of got reinterested in her. And then the Bangles happened to get back together in the early 2000s. And they made a couple of records. And the records were actually really good. You know, better than their final record that they made in their original run in the 80s, which was called Everything. It had some good songs, but it wasn't a great album. It was too mainstream and slick and whatever. But anyways, I've just been a big fan of her since the beginning of time. And I would say like best songs in terms, you know, Hero Takes a Fall. I already mentioned that. In Your Room, which by the way, that video is like almost like softcore porn if you're a fan of Susanna Hoffs, because she's hot as fuck in that video. In Your Room, great song. Tear Off Your Own Head, which is on their comeback album Doll Revolution. And actually Elvis Costello wrote the song. Because he was supposed to, I guess the story goes that he was going to do a TV show, and the story centered around an all-girl band, and he wrote the music and all this stuff. And then he wanted Susanna Hoffs to be the singer in this band. And that for whatever reason, that didn't work out. Susanna asked if she could keep the song and use it on the next Bangles record. And it's honestly one of their best songs. Manic Monday, of course. That's just timeless. Classic.
Did they have a lot of people write for them? You know, like that's a Prince song.
Not really. I mean, most of the other stuff was covers. Like they do a song by Hazy Shade of Winter. They're big Simon and Garfunkel fans. If She Knew What She Wants by Jules Shear. They knew that, you know, that was an obvious cover and stuff. Right. I love it. And they do September Girls by Big Star. Which actually I like to point out that I technically was introduced to Big Star and Alex Chilton 2 years before the Replacements, because it was really through the Bangles on that 1985 album Different Light. You know, everyone gives credit to the Replacements for reigniting the interest in Alex Chilton and Big Star and stuff, but really the Bangles did it 2 years before. And then the last song I would say
is Girls.
Yeah,
you go girls.
Is the song Girls Talk, which is an Elvis Costello song that's on the Under the Covers Volume 3. This is just Volume 1, but Volume 3, it's an Elvis Costello cover that Susanna sings the entire lead on, and it's just perfect. Amazing.
All right.
So that's my first entry there, Susanna Hoffs of the Bangles. And now let's go pick. Keith. Let's go to you for your first one.
Mine, I guess I'll go mine. I kind of put mine in an order. I'll start at number 5. My fifth one is Sue from Susie and the Banshees.
Yes.
And one of my favorite Hyena, one of my favorite Susie records.
Great record.
Awesome.
Hold that up, absolutely. My Susie fixation came when I probably about 11 or probably 12 or 13. Me and a buddy used to spend the night at his house. We'd spend the night at my house, and we watched. I mean, he was like kind of a metalhead, and I wasn't so much, but we'd also watch like 120 Minutes. And I remember seeing Yeah, I remember seeing Susie on there, like in video. I remember seeing like Cities and Dust and Dear Prudence and stuff, their cover. And I was like, I was mesmerized by her. She was like so exotic looking and gorgeous and like gothy. So that's how I got.
She had her own real like fashion style too. She looked different than everyone else. You know, she always looked different than everyone else.
She did, and then I do more. You get older, and I thought she's beautiful, and her voice is so mesmerizing. And you do more research, and when I get older, and it turns out that she was in what was called the Bromley contingent. She was the early kind of one big followers of the Sex Pistols.
Yes.
And that's how she got introduced. Like her earliest incarnations of her band had Sid Vicious in it on drums, which, if you think he's bad on bass, listen to him on drums. He's terrible. But
isn't she like in the crowd or hanging out with the band, like with the Sex Pistols?
Yeah.
At some point in some special, like the one famous interview they did, and she's
so
like sitting there
in the Bill Grundy interview.
Right.
Okay.
That when they like the filth and the fury thing, when they cursed on, daytime or, would have been, Rush Hour TV. And Susie was behind him, and Bill Grundy locked onto her because he was kind of a drunk old pervert in many, they say. And so he said, and she said, I'd always like to meet you. And always wanted to meet you. And he said, we should meet backstage. And then Steve Jones is like, I bet you'd like that. There's something to that effect. And it just went from there. But I just always loved her, and I still love her. And my wife, that's one of my wife and I's favorite collective musicians is Susie and the Banshees and the Creatures, of everything she does and her solo stuff. So I still love her very much. And favorites, by Aina is probably one of my favorite records, and Juju. Those are my two favorites. And then song-wise, I mean, there's so many, like Swimming Horses is one of my favorites. Happy House is another one of my favorites. But I also like a lot of her, everything. But some of her bigger hits, like I love Cities and Dust and Kiss Them For Me and all that stuff is so good.
Yeah.
So
have you ever seen her live?
I certainly have not. I know you have.
I have one time at the very, very first Lollapalooza tour back in 91 was the traveling tour, and it was Jane's Addiction, Susie and the Banshees, Living Color, Ice-T and Body Count, 9 Inch Nails, Butthole Surfers, and Rollins Band. And so I saw Susie and the Banshees. I mean, it was like they were second to Jane's Addiction. Like that's where Perry Farrell knew they were up at that status. It was his festival, so obviously they're on top, and then Susie Sue goes right second. But yeah, so I saw her once.
That's all. I mean, I'm jealous, but that's how my Susie fixation came about and still exists to this day. I listen to Susie in the Banshees, in the Creatures all the time. So that's my number 5.
All right, that sounds good. And she's awesome, by the way.
She's amazing.
Okay, Joey, you're up. Who's your first one?
I'm going to start with
your fifth one, whatever,
of the Ronits. And so True Confessions, I really don't own anything by the Ronits. Sorry. But they were kind of like that first girl band that I remember liking. I'm an old soul, so I like really old music. And I just remember like thinking how cool they were. She's kind of known as like the queen of rock and roll. And I just have always been attracted to her voice. I mean, they sing a lot of stuff about that have the word baby in it. Like some of my favorite songs are like, Be My Baby. I love you, you baby. And obviously her comeback with Eddie Money in the 80s, Take Me Home Tonight.
Yeah.
Little baby. Don't say maybe.
That's true. Forgot about that.
Yeah, I don't really, I just have always loved them. I just think they, considering the times that they started in, being kind of like the front runners of kind of this edgy, 1950s, 60s, they weren't rock and roll, but they kind of were.
They sort of were. And Phil Spector, she was his obsession. That's why he put so much more effort into Ronet's records than he did to any other artist because he was so obsessed with her and wanted her stuff to be the best.
Right.
And he's a whack, right? And he's a whack
horrible
job too.
That's true.
Happened to her, so.
Yeah, he's a complete fucking lunatic,
right?
Who pulled a gun on the Ramones when the Ramones were making a record with him in '79. So
yeah, didn't they make, what was it, Rocket to Russia or whatever record?
No, it was end of the century.
End of the century
With Rock and Roll High, like Rock and Roll High School. It sounds all '60s, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and they cover a Ronette song.
That's true. That's true.
So I just always, like I said, I just always loved that style of music. And that was kind of like one of my first memories listening to the radio was hearing the Ronettes. And she's done a lot of other stuff, like a lot of stuff with Bruce Springsteen. She's done some stuff with Glenn Danzig and the Misfits. And has done like a really good cover of an Amy Winehouse song. So she's done like so much producing after her, girl group career. But yeah, so I just love her voice, and I think it's so, iconic, and I wanted to have her on the list because I think she's an important female singer to have on the charts of Joey's favorites.
Okay, I'll move on to my next one, and my next one is Tonya Donnelly.
Great pick.
Tonya Donnelly, the queen of the indie rock world since the 80s. Because of her, she's in the Throwing Muses. She's a founding member of the Breeders. Her big thing was Belly. And of course, she's been a solo artist. And she just put out something just real recently with her and some other group, and it's all covers. And I actually am drawing a blank on what it's called, even though it's relatively new. But I first got into her probably back in the early 90s because of the Throwing Muses, which here represented here with
Lovely.
This the Hunk Papa record, which honestly I really didn't like at the time. When the Throwing Muses were first sort of, I heard them in the very late 80s. I didn't get it. I mean, I didn't like the sounds. I didn't like the vocals. I didn't like anything. I was just like, pass. But then the Real Ramona came out.
That's to this day still one of my favorite records.
Yeah, in '91, it's one of the best albums of the '90s by far.
That album's so good. And
every Kristen Hirsch song is great, but more importantly, the two Tonya Donnelly songs, because that was kind of the deal with her. It was sort of Kristen's band, the Throwing Muses, and she would do like 10 songs, and then Tonya would do like 2. So she obviously her 2 songs were always killer. On the Throwing Muses, they were the 2 best, like Not Too Soon and Honey Chain, or like timeless 90s classics. And yet she wasn't even the leader of the band. And so, she obviously had to get out from under her sister-in-law or stepsister, half-sister. They had the same mother, but different fathers. I don't know what that relationship is. Half-sister. Okay. So her half-sister. But I first got into her through Throwing Muses, and then I remember seeing her as a member of the Breeders because I was pretty into the Pixies, so I was following Kim Deal.
Deal of the Pixies, Tonya Donnelly of Throwing Muses, Perfect Disasters, Josephine Wiggs, and on drums, Shannon Doughton.
And that was considered, Kim Deal's band, even though it wasn't, because it was supposed to be Tonya Donnelly and her. That didn't work out. Tonya left pretty quick after the first record. And then she made Belly, and Belly was just phenomenal. Their 2 albums are both 5-star to me. There's not a bad song on them.
Agreed.
I get it why the first album was so successful. I don't understand why the second one wasn't. And they lost like half their audience and they broke up. By the way, I'm just going to pull out my Belly King Deluxe Edition CD right here. The box set or whatever. So,
Swanky.
That's my little collector's item for Belly. I don't have that much really. But no, I've just liked everything she's done. I mean, she's really been great, and she's great as a solo artist, she keeps saying she's retiring and then she puts something else out. So I don't understand, but I'm glad she's continuing to go. She does a lot of great cover songs too. If you look at her page on Spotify, she does great cover songs, and she still does write originals. So I just think she's got a fantastic voice. She writes, unique lyrics that don't seem like the way everybody else writes them. Like, and sometimes you're not always sure what the fuck she's writing about, but it's cool. She's a good guitar player. And there was an element of a crush there back in the early 90s. She's pretty freaking adorable. But there you go. As far as like favorite songs, I mean, I would say definitely the song Super Connected, which is on Belly's album King that I pulled out a minute ago. Not Too Soon from Throwing Muses. That's on The Real Ramona. A song called The River, which is another Throwing Muses track that's on House Tornado. Pretty Deep, which is on her first solo album, Love Songs for Underdogs. And then Geppetto, which is a song by Belly, which was kind of a hit in like 95 or so.
Okay.
They were so Belly was so great.
Yeah, they were. Their songs were so concise and perfect.
Totally reminds me of high school. So good.
Yeah. See, I was post college at that point.
You're a little older than I am,
but no, I mean, they could have owned the 90s. I mean, obviously trends shifted away from that kind of music, unfortunately. And so, by the time the second album, there just wasn't a possibility of getting that kind of mainstream success anymore. But no,
you couldn't fight Hootie and the Blowfish at that point. You just
they're still the best.
They are.
I admit I knew who Belly was. I just didn't know much about them. But I really did not know that this singer, when you picked her, Dave, was. Every now and then I've been catching your show on Sundays, and I noticed you've been playing a lot of Throwing Muses, and I honestly did not know that they were an 80s band, and I was like, I really like this group. Like, do
yourself a favor, Joel.
I really didn't know anything about them. Say that again.
Ramona, that album's so good.
The album, The Real Ramona. Yeah, that's the one you should check out. It's the best.
But yeah, I really enjoyed her singing. Because I played your little playlist on shuffle as well, because I could kind of get like more of a grasp of what we were all talking about and who we were interested in. But yeah, I enjoyed her, considering I really don't know much about her, and I do like her voice. It's unique, and I really like that Throwing Muses band.
They're part of that same sort of scene of like the Pixies, Dinosaur Jr., Throwing Muses, Buffalo Tom, the Blake Babies, that Boston kind of Northeast sort of vibe from back in the mid to late 80s, the Lemonheads.
Sure.
It was just such a great era. And I don't think enough people really lump them all together and realize that they're all kind of from the same period. And then, what I found out? Tonya Donnelly was on Mark Maron's podcast, and it turns out they both worked at the same restaurant in the mid 80s. She was in the Throwing Muses were already going, but they still had to have day jobs and stuff.
Right.
So I just thought that was hilarious.
Small world keeps getting smaller.
Exactly. So yeah, Tonya Donnelly.
A good one.
Her efforts in the Breeders are largely just guitar playing and stuff. Because there used to be this story that somehow the record label, she had her own record label with Throwing Muses, and they wouldn't let her sing on this new thing. And I think that story turned out to actually be bullshit, because they were both on 4AD. So why would anyone care? You know what I mean? The Breeders and Throwing Muses were both 4AD artists. So I really think that story is kind of nonsense. I don't understand why that thing with Tonya Donnelly and Kim Deal never really worked out. But I guess now we have Belly, so we're better off for it,
I still think of the Breeders as Kim and Kelly Deal's band. I don't think of it as
right. But if you look at Pod and see
you're right.
videos, she's in the videos. Tonya was just as a guitar player.
That album is fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. It's great. But unfortunately, most people don't even realize she was even in the band.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I forgot until you said that,
Yeah. Well, again, it became Kim Deal's thing.
Yeah, it really did.
Completely. And their big record, Tonya had already left the band by that point.
Well, yeah, Last Splash, she wasn't on.
Last Splash, she wasn't there. Right. Okay. Next, Keith. Let's give
my next one is Dolly Parton. So nice. I picked Dolly. I've always liked Dolly Parton. My parents had good taste in music. My mom liked Dolly Parton a lot, and I've known Dolly Parton since I was a little kid. But it wasn't until I got older in my life and I started liking older country that I really got into Dolly Parton. I mean, she's beautiful. Her voice is amazing. But she has such a vulnerability in her voice, and her lyrics are so good. And I thought that I highlight for me would be like that album, Coat of Many Colors. I love that album. And she's so good.
Yeah.
But just the songs, just that song Jolene, that song just gives me chills.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so good. And I mean, and I Will Always Love You, her version of that, to me, is the definitive version of that. I know a lot
of course.
It's
from the best of the whorehouse in Texas. It's in that one.
That's right.
You know,
We'll never seen that.
Really?
Well, Get Ready to Live.
Yeah. I mean,
that movie's actually funny, really funny. It's funny.
Yeah, in that mix that I was just referencing, there was a lot of Dolly Parton on it. And I always thought, I know Dolly Parton. I've known her since 9 to 5. That's probably my introduction to her when I saw her in that movie.
Well, that movie's so good.
The movie's hilarious. The song is great, And then, but I didn't realize how many songs of hers I was very familiar with, and I didn't even realize sometimes they were Dolly Parton songs. I mean, it brought me back to like riding around in a car with my parents back in the 70s or something, and you'd listen to the AM radio, and there were like 10 different Dolly Parton songs where I was like, this is Dolly Parton? Like, I didn't know that, It was crazy how many good songs she had back then.
I mean, yeah, you're right. She had tons. And I'll be honest, like the really early Dolly stuff with like her when she was with Porter Wagner, I don't know that stuff. I've never really listened to that.
I don't know it.
I don't know that either.
My mom didn't listen to that stuff, but they made a lot of records together. Now, I certainly know Dolly Parton when she did stuff with Kenny Rogers and like Islands in the Stream. I certainly know that stuff.
Islands in the Stream.
But I mean, like so many songs. But I would say, yeah, Coat of Many Colors is and 9 to 5 too is my favorite. But yeah, she's so good. And her personality. She's just a larger than life personality. And I always thought she was so beautiful. And I'm sure the boobs had something to do with it. But she was.
And she made a lot of jokes about it back on Hee-Haw and stuff like that.
Yeah.
She did. There was that famous joke. She was on the Carson show, and Johnny said, he's like, I'd give a month's salary to see what's under her shirt. But she's so.
You could say
so
stuff
good.
like that on TV back in the 70s,
right? Yeah,
right. Oh yeah, better time.
You'd be canceled now.
You would be. Johnny'd be he'd be Me Too'd.
Yeah.
But she's my number 4 because she's just so good, and I continue to discover things by her that I really like.
Yeah, her catalog is out of this world.
She has a million.
You don't realize how much she's written.
I know.
Oh, that too, and
yeah. I mean, honestly, like every time a Dolly Parton song would come on, I would be like, "This is Dolly Parton," like because it wasn't even so much. She has like songs that are just straight up country, and you can tell, but she did almost like what's her name, Shania Twain, effortlessly become pop at the same time.
Yeah, it was.
And she could mix in like just straight ahead pop songs. That's why she was so fucking huge for such a long time.
9 to 5 is a pop song.
Definitely a pop song. I mean,
it's like
I wouldn't have been caught dead listening to country music, at that point in my life. Sure. I was only 9 or 10 when that movie came out, but whatever. The point is I didn't like country, but it's kind of undeniable 9 to 5, Great tune.
Such a great song.
So that's my
and that movie's great. Dabney Coleman, anything he was in was instant classic.
That movie's so awesome. It still holds up till this day.
It's funny.
Yeah, I saw it. I was flipping channels one day, and it's like maybe 3/4 into the movie, and I was just like, God, this looks so great,
And when you see that movie, like the women in the secretarial pool and dealing with that sexist boss, that was a coda of America in the late 70s, early 80s. That's how work was. I remember going to see my, dad at work, and there was like women, the rows and rows of women at desks and typing. That's how the world used to be.
Hey, watch Mad Men. It was even worse then. You know what I mean? Like they put, you couldn't even transfer phone calls back then without operators. So they had women it was all women, and they were in a closet somewhere, pulling levers, putting this cord into this spot and this spot into this, transfer this call to this place. And it was just all the women, they just could be secretaries. That was it.
Yeah.
That was the pretty much the limit.
Yeah.
But hey,
you could secretary school.
But you could smoke at your desk. So, maybe there was
The
a trade-off.
benefits of the job.
Right. Maybe there were some benefits to that. I don't know.
Have a two martini lunch, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my dad had a secretary, and he would just dictate stuff into it. Well, he did till he retired too, but he would just dictate stuff into the dictating machine, and then she would type it up. Nowadays, I feel like people would just type their own shit on their computer.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this
Right.
was the 70s. I don't know. It was different. Than that.
Different world.
Right. Right.
Totally.
So, all right, Dolly Parton, from Keith. Joey, what is your next one?
I will say we'll stick on the country theme. Mine is Patsy Cline.
I knew you'd have Patsy. I almost had Patsy.
Okay. Well, kind of like you, like my grandparents had awesome, well, when you're younger, you're just like, this is grandparents' music, but it's a very fond memory for me. I think her voice is just amazing.
It's ridiculous.
And she's just always had like a special place in my heart, so I had to put her on here. A few of my favorite songs are Sweet, She's Got You, and I Fall to Pieces. Of course, there are many, many others that I could list out of her catalog, but I remember like when Tower Records was still around, they had
good old days.
I still had like a cassette player in my little radio stereo system, and they had like buy 3 for $10, and I would replay this Patsy Cline cassette over and over again. And I don't know, she's just amazing voice, incredibly talented. And yeah, she just has really fond memory. Her music has fond memories for me. So that's why she's on my list.
Yeah, no, I like her too. I think we discussed this in the past on other videos, but I have a very limited knowledge about country, but there are some classic artists like Hank Williams and Patsy Cline and Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash and those old guys. I consider her part of that classic country scene, and I do like a lot of that old school stuff, and I've always heard her songs, and like you said, I Fall to Pieces, that's just a classic, and just an amazing voice. Too short a career, obviously, but great stuff. I mean, I don't have any of her records, but I'm still very familiar with her greatest hits, let's say.
Her voice is so lovelorn, it's so good. She's so good. She's so beautiful.
Okay. I mentioned Tonya Donnelly last time, so I'll do her sort of musical cousin with Juliana Hatfield. Would be my next one.
Awesome.
And hold on, I'm going to find a Juliana record here. Okay. Well, her first one, of course, her first solo record here with Hey Babe. And this was really the first time I heard her. This was 1992. It was a big buzz record. I had kind of heard of her band, the Blake Babies, before that, but I honestly didn't really know them. And just as I started hearing their name, they broke up and she went solo. Here's her tribute to Olivia Newton-John.
I remember you putting that on your show. I like that album.
Which is surprisingly, I love it. And I don't care much for Olivia Newton-John, but I have to say that thing, it made me love those songs at least, but
what did you say? You don't care for much for Olivia?
No, now I kind of do. So she's been in the Blake Babies. She's been a solo artist. She was the Juliana Hatfield 3, where she had her biggest record with that My Sister and Spin the Bottle. Those were both big hits for her. She has this group called Some Girls. She had a group called the I Don't Cares with Paul Westerberg. They've only done one album. It's great though. And then a group called Minor Alps, which is her and the singer of Not a Surf, which is pretty good too, but it kind of low key because nobody really heard it, I guess. But no, I just, when she first came out again, that Hey Babe album, and she had that first video, Everybody Loves Me But You. And I love the song. I love the sentiment because it was kind of being sarcastic because most of her like persona, her public persona, one was that she was a virgin, which I thought was the dumbest public persona that you would want as an artist. I don't get that, why that's your thing. But anyways, and that she was this shy and she barely talked to anybody. And, she was all mousy when she would do interviews and shit.
Yeah, but she was hot though.
She was, and I definitely crushed out on her, and all of my friends did too. We were in college, and all our sort of peer group, we all listened to that album over and over and over. And take away what she looks like, and it doesn't really matter, because bottom line is that album is so good. Every just song on her debut album, Everybody Loves Me But You, I already said. I See You, The Lights, Nirvana, Forever Baby, Get on Your Knees. All these songs are fucking fantastic. And she's not afraid to look like kind of shit like this back of this album. I mean, she's not looking all that good there on the other one. And she had that song Ugly. Well, she had that song Ugly, where she sings about, I mean, obviously she must have some dysmorphia, because it's all about her feeling like really disgusting and ugly looking and all of this. And it was just weird. So anyways,
it exists. So.
Yeah, no, I believe it completely. I got into it. I got into her music at that point. I went back. I got the Blake Babies records. They're really good. She was the bass player back then, and now she's doing guitar. I have most of her solo catalog. She probably has about 15 albums at this point. And recently she's been doing these cover albums where she takes on an artist and just does an album of their songs. She did the Olivia Newton-John one, which I showed. She did the Police last year, and it was great. I mean, really, really, really good. Those songs are so big and so well known. It's how are you going to put your own take on da 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 or whatever,
or Message in a Bottle or whatever. Yeah.
Yet she did.
Yeah.
She did her own take, and she did some obscure songs from the Police, and then she wasn't afraid to do like a big one, like Every Breath You Take or something like that. So it was really, really good. Great voice, great attitude. I mean, I follow her on social media, and she's gotten very political over the years, because pretty much everybody has, it seems. And she's pretty entertaining on social media. I think she's like a really smart, talented person. I haven't seen her perform since the 90s, and I'd really like that to be corrected. Every year when I used to be involved with Maha, I would submit her name as somebody to come and do it, and like, no, everyone's like, who? I mean, whatever. I'm move on from that. As far as favorite songs of hers, there's a song. It's French, so it's hard for me to pronounce, but Fleur de Lis, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's on her album Only Everything. Everybody Loves Me But You, obviously that's just a classic. That's from her debut album. Hey Babe. When You're a Star is on her album Pussycat, which is the album that she wrote all the songs immediately after the 2016 election. So it was just like it was a lot of her reaction to what happened there. And so When You're a Star is the reference to the what do you call it, that the Access Hollywood tape where Trump was like, grab him by the pussy or whatever. He's like, when you're a star, they just let you do it, and that's the basis of When You're a Star. That's the gist of the song. I'm Not Your Mother is a Blake Babies song on the album Sunburn. It's brilliant, great lyrics, really biting, kind of critical of men, but hey, whatever, we probably deserved it. and then Dance to the Fight, which is a song from the I Don't Cares, which is that collaboration with Paul Westerberg. Awesome. That's really good. She only sings on like 2 songs. So there you go, Juliana Hatfield. I just think she's amazing, from Hey Babe all the way up to her most recent record of originals, which is called Weird.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
She's awesome. I've seen her live before in concert and at like a record store thing. Ooh. It was just her on acoustic. It was pretty neat.
I'm jealous.
She was really good. She only played for like 15 minutes, but then she signed stuff. But it was really cool. And then, like, I always liked that album, "Become What You Are."
Yeah.
And, like, "Spin the Bottle" and like My Sister. Yeah, she's really good.
And funny thing is, she didn't even have a sister.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The girl in the song "My Sister" was her older brother's girlfriend.
Okay,
who lived at their house. I guess her parents were one of those like hippie, super liberal types that allowed their teenage kids to have their girlfriends come in and live in the house. So, my mom never would have gone for that. I know that. And,
Fuck no. Shit.
No. So she didn't really have a sister. She had her brother's girlfriend. So there you go. That's the secret behind My Sister. But That is her best known song. I mean, no question. Keith, what do you got next?
Third one would be Paulie Jean Harvey,
Oh, she's so
yes.
who I have still probably an unhealthy crush on.
good.
If I saw her and like she had a Skippy something on, I'd probably fucking faint. She's gorgeous.
The cover of that Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea. That's her hottest picture ever. I mean, when I look at that, I'm just like, wow, she looks so fucking
she's so
good.
beautiful, but she's so amazing. She's so talented. She's so good. But I've liked her since high school. Like, I remember like hearing like that single Down by the Water. I was like, God, this is really good. I got to check this chick out. And then I remember picking up, that album, To Bring You My Love. And then I remember getting like Dry and Rid of Me. And they're all so good. She's so good. So I've liked her forever, and I still buy her. If she has something that comes out, I buy it.
Those
90,
her first two records, Dry and Rid of Me are just so fucking amazing.
Song,
I mean, I love all her stuff. I mean, like you said,
that song Legs is amazing on the Rid of Me. God,
I mean, Dress and just God, everything on that.
And that song on To Bring You My Love, Come On Billy. God, that song's so good.
That's a good one too. That Rid of Me is so fucking raw and aggro.
Yeah,
the way that came out, and then with the Steve Albini production,
yes,
which is so bare. And I know a lot of people kind of hated it because her voice was a little bit back in the mix. That's kind of the Albini thing, and the drums are really loud. That's kind of how he does it. But man, it's just so fucking great. And I probably went like 10 years without hearing it. And when I put it on, I was just as blown away almost as I was in the 90s.
So good. She's so talented and so good. And I could like 90% of her music is just great. And like, yeah, that Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea came out. I was in college. I was obsessed with that record. And that video.
I was too.
That's a good one.
I only know a couple of her albums that I've listened to. But that one I had on heavy rotation at one point in my life. So
agreed, Joao. That's a good one. And that video for Good Fortune, she's so fucking hot. And
I don't know if I've ever seen that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen any of her videos.
Her videos are generally pretty fantastic. And then she has a more recent album called Let England Shake that's amazing. I would highly recommend that to anybody.
Did you ever see, Keith, when she made her, like, I think it was her debut appearance on The Tonight Show? This is back in the day with Jay Leno. And she came on and did Wang Dang Doodle. You know, that, like, I think it was like Bo Diddley or something. It's a B-side.
I don't know if I've ever seen that.
Oh, it's probably on YouTube. Look it up. It's her first performance. Yeah, everything's on YouTube. Yeah. It's her first, I think, performance on like a mainstream American TV show. And she's on Jay Leno. And she went out there and did Wang Dang Doodle, which was awesome. And she shredded on it. It was so cool.
Yeah, she's so good. She's so talented. And her voice is so good. And for being this tiny little skinny English woman from, she's from like Yeovil, which is essentially Omaha of England.
The Omaha of England.
She's so good. So she's my number 3. I mean, I could talk about her forever. She's just fantastic. And I mean, like I said, I had a pretty unhealthy obsession with her when I was in college. That was always my, if somebody, when I was first dating my wife, Liz, and like, we had to talk like, if there was some celebrity you met, you could have a freebie.
The freebie, yeah.
That was freebie. She was mine. Paulie Jean Harvey's like, if I met Paulie Jean Harvey and she wanted to bang, which she wouldn't. That would be mine.
I just watched. I stumbled upon this today on YouTube. The performance by PJ Harvey from The Basement. This venue called The Basement.
Was it with her, or was it with was she doing stuff with Josh Homme, or?
No, it was just her.
Okay.
I don't know how far back it was, but she seems fairly young in it. And I was like, what is this show? And so I started going down a rabbit hole, and there's all these, I mean, they had anyone from fairly new bands like the White Stripes. Well, they're not, more current, all the way to like old Radiohead, and they had her on it. And it was just her and the piano and the harmonica. I'm like, okay, I know like she's incredible, but I was like, this is really raw and intense. I have no idea what I'm watching, nor do I know this song. But She was in this very like Victorian white dress. If you ever stumble upon it, that's what it was. So
I'm sure I'll be seeing it at some point.
That's probably from like when she did that White Chalk album, which was like really like mellow. Yeah, I probably have seen that, Joie.
Okay. Well, there.
Apologies.
My 2 cents on PJ Harvey, but I love that story. Stories of the city.
Stories from the Sea. Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, she kind of returned to guitar after doing a couple of albums throughout the mid to late 90s where she didn't play guitar as much. Like To Bring You My Love, she doesn't really play guitar on that record, not like the first two.
No,
where she rocked. And then she kind of brought it back on Stories from the City. And that's why I always saw that as like it wasn't the old PJ Harvey band, but she still sounded, PJ Harvey was a band technically on those first two albums. And then it just became her solo thing afterwards.
And she's done stuff that I've never heard. She's done stuff with like John Parrish. I've never heard that stuff.
Honestly, it wasn't that good. I'm just being frank. It was unfortunate because, they can't all be golden. You know what I mean?
They can't.
Some people, you can't be 100%. But
Dave, what's the bad Judas Priest record? Is it Turbo?
It's considered to be Turbo. Yeah.
Yeah. So for every British Steel, there's got to be a Turbo.
There's got to be a Turbo, and maybe that was her Turbo.
Maybe it was.
I mean, who knows? Anyways, no, I don't think PJ Harvey had a Turbo technically, but
no, I don't either.
Okay. From PJ Harvey to Joey. Who is next?
Totally throwing this for a whirlwind.
All right.
I thought it'd be cool to mention some really amazing background singers on some tracks.
This was your best pick, in my opinion.
Really?
Yes.
Because I just watched this documentary, 20 Feet from Stardom.
Yep.
Has anyone watched it yet?
It's on my list.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's really good.
It's it's been what was it, 2014? So it's been around for some time.
A little bit.
I just finally got around to watching it. And I was like, shit, I don't give background singers enough credit. And half the time on some of these tracks, on songs, I am singing the background part. Like, so I picked Mary Clayton, who is best known. I mean, she's a gospel singer now, but she is best known for singing the backup on Gimme Shelter with the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
And I listened to this again before we were going to have our little chat. And I'm like, this isn't a Rolling Stones song. This is her song. Like, if you think about it, like
100%. That song's so fucking good.
It's so good. And I am really attracted to voices where they just can go so high and they can just, like, she's like, oh, she's hit it high. Nope. A step further. Nope. She just keeps going up and keeps surprising you on that song. And I just wanted to like throw in a background or a backup singer on this list because there are so many talented women who don't get to shine in the spotlight. And I think that one, if we had to, kind of highlight, that really is her song. I think it as Mick Jagger just being in the background going, oh, the poem, or whatever. So
now, is she on any other famous songs?
I know she there were so many like talented women that they highlighted in that documentary. I just know she now does a lot of gospel. I think she might have done stuff like with Leonard Skinner. I didn't do my homework enough. Sorry.
Way to go, Joey.
She was definitely in that time when, like Leonard Skinner, Lou Reed, David Bowie were all starting to use, more background singers, like soulful R&B singers. And so that's why
there's a famous woman or example, sorry, Rona, of the
stop it.
Of the on Pink Floyd, I think it's on like The Great Gig in the Sky.
Yes, that one, yeah.
Where she has this really long, she's a background singer, but she's basically singing lead because there's no one else singing. Right. And she has this real famous part. She's all, whoa, that whole thing. And she's been noted in a lot of things as being like one of the most famous backup singers.
Totally.
Also. I don't remember her name. I don't know who she is, but I just know she's also considered to be pretty known.
Yes.
Pretty well known.
I actually made a tiny list of like favorite backup singer songs, and that was on The Great Gig in the Sky.
I just guessed that. I was glad I guessed right.
Yeah,
it was The Great Gig in the Sky. I couldn't remember the song.
I saw Pink Floyd's Australian like they have a cover band. They're like from Australia.
Okay, right.
They had a girl do that song. They played Great Gig in the Sky, and she nailed it like note for note. And I was just like, God. Like, anyways, but I had Mary Clayton. I think that her voice is so amazing and doesn't get enough credit. And that song is just fantastic. And unfortunately, I'm sure, like from what I remember in the documentary, she sang on other stuff.
I'm sure she did.
But a lot of like, Stones like went through, like they had so many background singers, like there was like 3 or 4 of them in each song, but like they just had, one that could really pull through with a particular track like that one. And just, yeah, it still gives me chills. So I had to give some credit due to some amazing
Someone
background female singers.
Background.
Mary Clayton.
All right. Thanks a lot for watching part 1. We'll have part 2 up next week. Thanks a lot to Joi and Keith for appearing in the video again. We've got a few more lockdown that we're going to do in the next couple of weeks. So you'll be seeing those 2 faces along with mine a lot more throughout your holiday season. So lucky for you, buddies. All right. Thanks a lot for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.